My name is Emmanuel Winters, 68 years old, standing soaked on a deserted mountain road as rain pours down my weathered face. Just minutes ago, my daughter Amanda drove away, leaving me stranded without a phone, without shelter, without warning. The irony burns deeper than the cold rain. Her luxury penthouse, the one she rushed back to, sits proudly on Manhattan Avenue with my name on the deed. She never imagined I would fight back. If you are watching this, tell me where you are tuning in from. Hit that subscribe button and stay for a story about betrayal and boundaries that changed everything. I spent 43 years as a structural engineer, building skyscrapers that would outlast me. Now, retired for 6 years, I find myself rebuilding something far more complex than any steel and concrete structure. The foundation of my relationship with my only child had crumbled beneath me without warning signs I was willing to see. My wife Catherine passed 8 years ago after a brief but brutal battle with pancreatic cancer. She was always the bridge between Amanda and me, translating our different languages of love. Catherine understood our daughter in ways I struggled to grasp. While I showed love through provision and protection, Amanda seemed to interpret my efforts as control and interference. Amanda is 38 now, an executive at Skyline Luxury Properties, one of New York City's premier real estate firms. Ambitious from childhood, she climbed the corporate ladder with remarkable speed. Her corner office overlooks Central Park, and her client list includes celebrities and foreign diplomats. From the outside, her life appears perfect, enviable. What remained hidden was how much of that perfect life rested on my financial foundation. When Catherine died, something changed in Amanda. The occasional phone calls became shorter. The monthly dinners became quarterly, then sporadic at best. I attributed her distance to grief, then to her demanding career. I never imagined the true reason was far more calculated. Despite the growing distance, I continued supporting Amanda, as I always had. When she graduated with her MBA 12 years ago, I paid off her student loans, a 6-figure gift that she accepted with less gratitude than I expected. 5 years ago, when she claimed her career demanded a prestigious address, I purchased the penthouse apartment she coveted, $3 million, paid in full, with the understanding she would eventually buy it from me when her finances allowed. I kept my name on the deed as a formality, a decision that would prove crucially important. I helped her secure her position at Skyline through connections from my engineering days. The owners owed me favors after I saved them millions on structural redesigns for 2 of their signature buildings. Amanda never acknowledged this assistance, preferring to believe her success came solely through her own merit. Our interactions became increasingly transactional. She would call when she needed something, financial advice or connections to influential people. I always provided what she needed, hoping each gesture might bridge the widening gap between us. Last month, I decided to take a more direct approach to repair our relationship. The family cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains had been sitting empty since Catherine died. Amanda spent childhood summers there, collecting fireflies in mason jars and learning to fish in the nearby stream. I thought a weekend road trip might reawaken those memories and give us uninterrupted time to reconnect. When I called to suggest the trip, Amanda sounded distracted, uninterested. After gentle persistence and a reminder that I would handle all the planning, she reluctantly agreed to the following weekend. I hung up feeling more hopeful than I had in years. I believed this trip would be our turning point, a chance to rebuild what we had lost. I spent the week preparing, cleaning the cabin, stocking the refrigerator with her favorite foods, even finding the old photo albums we had not looked through since the funeral. I created a playlist of songs from family road trips when she was young, classics by Simon and Garfunkel, Fleetwood Mac, and the Eagles that once prompted our family sing-alongs. I even wrapped a small gift, a delicate silver compass pendant that had belonged to Catherine, inscribed with the words, "Find your way home." The night before our departure, I could barely sleep, filled with nervous anticipation like a father before his daughter's first day of school. I genuinely believed we were heading toward reconciliation, that this weekend would heal old wounds and forge new bonds. I had no idea we were actually driving toward the moment that would shatter any illusions I still harbored about our relationship. The morning of our trip arrived with promising sunshine and mild temperatures, perfect driving weather for the 6-hour journey ahead. I packed the car by 7:30, arranged snacks in the center console, and waited with growing anticipation for Amanda to arrive at 8 as planned. By 8:45, with no word from her, I called. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice sharp with irritation. "Sorry, running late. Work emergency. Be there by 9:30. She hung up before I could respond. At 10:15, her sleek black BMW finally pulled into my driveway. She emerged looking immaculate in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater, oversized sunglasses hiding any expression in her eyes. No apology for the delay, just a quick kiss on my cheek that felt like a business formality. "Ready to hit the road, Dad?" she asked, already walking toward my SUV without waiting for an answer. I swallowed my disappointment at her tardiness and focused on the positive. We were going. That was what mattered. The first hour passed in relative silence. Amanda responded to my conversation attempts with one-word answers while constantly checking her phone. When I asked about work, she offered vague details about a new development project that was consuming her attention. When I inquired about her personal life, she deflected with practiced ease. "Remember how you used to sing along to this one?" I asked when Don Henley's voice filled the car. Amanda glanced up from her phone with a distracted smile. "Sure, Dad," she replied, then immediately returned to typing an email. I continued trying to engage her, sharing stories about her childhood visits to the cabin. "Remember when you caught that enormous trout and were so proud you insisted we take 20 photographs?" "Vaguely," she muttered, not looking up. After 2 hours, her phone rang. She answered immediately, her voice transforming from disinterested daughter to sharp executive. "Amanda Winters," she announced crisply. What followed was a 15-minute conversation about a property deal that seemed to be facing complications. I tried not to eavesdrop, but in the confined space of the car, it was impossible not to hear her side of the discussion. "Tell them my father is Emmanuel Winters of Winters Engineering." Yes, that Emmanuel Winters. He personally oversaw the structural design of their headquarters. "I'm sure we can arrange a meeting if that would help move things along." I gripped the steering wheel tighter, uncomfortable with her casual leveraging of my reputation. This was not the first time I had heard her use my name to facilitate deals, but it was the first time I heard the calculating tone behind it. There was something cold and transactional in her voice that unsettled me. When she finished the call, I casually asked about the project. Her explanation was polished but evasive, suggesting the conversation was not meant for my ears. I let it drop, not wanting to create tension so early in our trip. Another mistake in a long series of avoiding difficult conversations. By noon, we stopped at a roadside diner for lunch. The quaint establishment had been a family favorite during previous trips, its home-style cooking and friendly service unchanged by time. Over plates of comfort food, I attempted again to connect. "The cabin's exactly as you remember it. I even found your old fishing rod in the shed." Amanda set down her fork and looked directly at me for perhaps the first time that day. "Dad, I need to discuss something with you." My heart lifted. Finally, a real conversation. "I've been considering selling the penthouse," she said matter-of-factly. "Your penthouse?" I clarified, reminded her gently. "You mean my penthouse that you're living in?" Her expression hardened slightly. "Yes, technically it's yours, but we always discussed that it would eventually be mine." "Of course," I nodded. "When you were financially stable enough to purchase it from me." "Well, I have an opportunity to invest in a major development project. If I sell the penthouse, I could use that capital to secure a significant stake." I frowned, concern growing. "That sounds quite risky. What kind of development?" "It's a luxury resort complex in Florida. Very exclusive, tremendous potential return." "And you need $3 million to buy in?" I asked, mental alarm bells ringing louder. "Who's the developer?" She waved dismissively. "You wouldn't know them. New players. Very innovative. I'd like to review the prospectus before any decisions about the penthouse," I said, my caution evident. Amanda's expression closed like a vault. "I don't need your approval on my investments, Dad. I'm just letting you know my plans regarding the property. The property that's in my name, I reminded her. I'm not saying no, Amanda. I'm saying I need more information before transferring a $3 million asset. She picked up her fork again, stabbing at her salad. This is exactly why I avoid these conversations with you. Everything comes with strings attached. Wanting to protect you is not attaching strings, I replied, feeling the familiar tension rising between us. I don't need protection. I need you to trust my judgment and business acumen. Our lunch continued with strained politeness, the fragile hope for connection fraying with each exchange. As we returned to the car, dark clouds gathered on the horizon, a fitting backdrop to the growing tension between us. By mid-afternoon, rain began falling, light at first, then intensifying as we wound our way into the mountains. The peaceful patter against the windshield would normally have been soothing, but in our charged silence, each drop seemed to echo the unspoken frustrations building between us. Perhaps we should turn back, I suggested, eyeing the increasingly heavy downpour. The weather report mentioned potential storms. We could try again next weekend. I can't do next weekend, Amanda replied sharply. I've already rescheduled 3 meetings for this trip. We continue, or we cancel altogether. I chose to continue. Another decision I would soon regret deeply. The rain intensified as we climbed higher into the mountains, the windshield wipers barely keeping pace with the downpour. The tension in the car seemed to rise with the elevation, both of us sensing an inevitable confrontation brewing. I've been thinking more about the penthouse situation, I said finally, breaking the extended silence. I'm concerned about this investment opportunity you mentioned. It sounds potentially problematic. Amanda exhaled sharply. Here we go. You always do this. Do what exactly? Treat me like I'm still 16 and incapable of making financial decisions. I'm an executive at one of the top real estate firms in New York. I evaluate property investments for a living. Then you should understand my hesitation, I countered. Any legitimate investment opportunity would have proper documentation, references, proven track records. All I'm asking is to see that information before agreeing to anything regarding the penthouse. Her knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. She had taken over driving after lunch, insisting my old eyes weren't up to the challenging mountain roads in poor weather. The penthouse was supposed to be my gift, she said, her voice rising. But you kept your name on it so you could maintain control, just like everything else you've ever given me. That's not fair, Amanda. I've supported you unconditionally. No, you've supported me transactionally. There's a difference. Everything comes with your approval attached, your expectations, your timeline. Never just trust in my abilities. The unfairness of her accusation stung sharply. I paid for your education without question. I connected you with people who launched your career. I purchased a multi-million-dollar apartment for you to live in. How exactly is that controlling behavior? Because you never let me forget it, she nearly shouted. Every decision, every conversation circles back to how much you've done for me. It's your way of keeping me obligated to you. Rain hammered against the roof as our argument escalated. Decades of unspoken resentments bubbled to the surface, poisoning the air between us. I've only wanted what's best for you, I insisted. No, you wanted what you decided was best for me. There's a difference. She swerved slightly on the wet road, her attention divided between driving and arguing. Careful, I cautioned, reaching for the dashboard. I know how to drive, Dad, she snapped. I noticed her designer handbag had fallen over in the footwell, papers spilling out. Instinctively, I reached down to collect them, a simple courtesy that would change everything. Among the scattered documents, I spotted official-looking paperwork with the penthouse address. As I gathered the papers, my eyes caught phrases that froze my blood. Second mortgage, equity loan, transfer of deed. What are these? I asked, holding up the documents. Amanda glanced over, her face paling beneath her perfect makeup. Put those back. Those are private business papers. These are loan documents for the penthouse. My penthouse, I said, scanning the pages with growing horror. You've taken out loans against property you don't own. I was going to tell you once the deal was finalized, she said, her voice tight. Tell me what exactly? That you forged my signature? Because that's what this looks like, Amanda. I flipped to the last page where my signature appeared. A reasonable facsimile, but definitely not my handwriting. It's not what you think. Really. Because I think you committed fraud using my property as collateral without my knowledge or consent. What am I missing here? Her face hardened, defensiveness replacing her momentary guilt. You would never have agreed to my investment plan. I needed to move quickly. The opportunity would have disappeared. So you committed a felony? Do you understand what you've done? This is fraud, Amanda. Criminal fraud. Stop being so dramatic. I was going to pay off the loan with the profits. You would never have known the difference. And if this miracle investment failed, what then? Her silence answered more clearly than words could have. Pull over, I said quietly. What? Pull over the car now. I need some air. Amanda jerked the wheel, bringing the SUV to an abrupt stop on the narrow shoulder of the mountain road. Rain pounded the roof as we sat in thunderous silence. You've never believed in me, she said finally, her voice cold. Never trusted my judgment. This has nothing to do with trust. You broke the law using my name. Just like you to focus on technicalities instead of supporting my ambitions. The absurdity of her position left me momentarily speechless. When I found my voice again, I spoke with a calm I didn't feel. Amanda, we need to go back to the city immediately. These documents need to be addressed with my lawyer present. Always controlling, always dictating, she muttered, then suddenly shouted, Get out. Excuse me? Get out of the car. Take a few minutes to calm down. Walk off your self-righteousness. Amanda, it's pouring rain. We're miles from anywhere. 10 minutes, she insisted. We both need to cool off before continuing this conversation. Reluctantly, thinking she merely needed space, I stepped out into the downpour. Instantly soaked, I walked a few paces from the vehicle, trying to process the documents I'd discovered and what they meant. Behind me, I heard the engine reverend turning. I watched in disbelief as Amanda pulled away, the SUV quickly disappearing around the curve ahead. I stood frozen, certain she was just making a point and would return momentarily. 1 minute passed, then 5, 10. The rain continued relentlessly, plastering my clothes to my skin. The terrible truth slowly dawned. She wasn't coming back. My phone was in the center console of the car, my wallet in the glove box. I had nothing but the clothes on my back and the devastating knowledge that my only child had just abandoned me on a remote mountain road in a thunderstorm. For almost 2 hours, I walked along the deserted road, thumb out for the occasional passing vehicle, none of which stopped. The rain never lessened, and my thoughts grew as dark as the storm clouds above. How had we reached this point? How had I raised a daughter capable of such callous behavior? With each sodden step, memories of Amanda's childhood flashed through my mind. Her 5th birthday party, where she proudly introduced me to her friends as my daddy who builds the tallest buildings in the world. Her high school graduation, where she hugged me tightly after receiving her diploma. The day she called, voice bubbling with excitement, about her acceptance to business school. Where had that loving daughter gone? Had she ever really existed? Or had I simply seen what I wanted to see? By the time I reached a small gas station convenience store, I was chilled to the bone, my clothes heavy with rainwater, my heart heavier with betrayal. The fluorescent lights of the rural gas station cast harsh shadows across my rain-drenched figure as I pushed open the door. The elderly man behind the counter looked up from his newspaper, eyes widening at my appearance. "Good Lord, mister, you look like you swam here," he exclaimed, immediately reaching beneath the counter for a stack of paper towels. "Car trouble," I explained vaguely, pride preventing me from admitting the full, humiliating truth. "Could I use your phone? Mine's unavailable." While dialing the only number I knew by heart, my fingers trembling slightly from cold and emotion, the clerk introduced himself as Earl and insisted I take the cup of coffee he offered. "On the house," he said, waving away my attempts to explain I had no wallet. Paul answered on the second ring, his familiar gruff voice an immediate comfort. We had been friends for over 40 years, since our first engineering job fresh out of college. If anyone would help without judgment, it would be Paul. "Emmanuel? This number isn't showing as you," he answered cautiously. "I'm at a gas station in the mountains," I explained quickly. There's been a situation with Amanda. I need help. Paul asked no questions, simply requesting the address and promising to be there as quickly as possible. Sit tight, old friend. I'm on my way. After hanging up, I settled onto a plastic chair by the window, watching the rain while nursing the coffee. Earl busied himself with restocking, occasionally glancing my way with undisguised curiosity. Waiting for my friend, I offered. Should be here in about 2 hours. Earl nodded, then hesitated. Looks like you could use some dry clothes in the meantime. My wife and I live just behind the station. She might have something that would fit you. His unexpected kindness nearly undid my composure. That would be most appreciated, I managed to say. Earl's wife Dorothy turned out to be a warm, motherly woman who fussed over me like I was one of her children. Frank and Dorothy Reynolds, she introduced them, ushering me into their modest home with its hand-stitched quilts and family photographs covering the walls. You look about Frank's size, she decided, disappearing into a bedroom and returning with dry clothes. Get changed in the bathroom, and I'll make you a proper meal. You look half-starved on top of being half-drowned. Cleaned up and wearing Frank's flannel shirt and jeans, I sat at their kitchen table, the aroma of homemade stew filling the small space. For a few blessed minutes, I focused only on the simple comfort of warm food and kind company. So, Frank said finally, refilling my water glass, want to tell us what really happened? Not many folks end up walking these roads in weather like this by choice. Something about their unpretentious kindness broke through my reserve. I found myself telling these strangers the whole painful story, from Catherine's death to Amanda's growing distance, the penthouse purchase, the discovered fraud, and finally, the abandonment on the roadside. They listened without interruption, their expressions shifting from surprise to sympathy to something like recognition. We know something about difficult children, Dorothy said when I finished. Our son Jeffrey went through a phase that nearly broke our hearts. Frank nodded solemnly. Got mixed up with the wrong crowd, started stealing from us to support his habit. Even sold Dorothy's mother's wedding ring. What did you do? I asked, desperate for guidance from someone who understood. Hardest thing we ever did, Frank replied. We changed our locks, reported the theft to police, and told him he wasn't welcome back until he was clean and ready to make amends. Dorothy reached across the table to squeeze my hand. Love doesn't mean being a doormat, Emmanuel. Sometimes the most loving thing is establishing boundaries. Did it work? With your son? I needed to know there was hope on the other side of standing firm. Their exchanged glance told me it had been a difficult journey. Eventually, Dorothy said. He's been sober 8 years now. Lives in Asheville with his wife and 2 beautiful children. But it took him hitting rock bottom first, and us refusing to cushion his fall. We were still talking when headlights swept across the window, announcing Paul's arrival. I stood to thank these unexpected good Samaritans who had offered more than shelter from the storm. Take my card, Frank insisted, pressing a business card into my hand. Let us know how things turn out. Embraced by Dorothy and clapped on the shoulder by Frank, I stepped out to meet Paul, carrying their borrowed clothes and their invaluable wisdom. Paul's reaction to my story during the drive back to the city ranged from disbelief to fury on my behalf. Unlike me, he had always viewed Amanda with a more objective eye, occasionally suggesting that I enabled her self-centered tendencies. She's been manipulating you for years, Emmanuel, he said bluntly. I've watched it happen and kept quiet because you wouldn't hear it. But this crosses every line. She committed fraud, then abandoned her elderly father in dangerous conditions. There could have been serious consequences. I'm 68, not 98, I protested mildly, but his words stung because they contained truth. I had allowed Amanda to manipulate me, making excuses for her behavior, always giving without expectations. Have you checked your phone yet? Paul asked, handing me his spare charger. My device had been returned to me when we stopped at a highway patrol station to file a report about Amanda taking my vehicle. Once powered on, my phone revealed no calls or messages from Amanda. Not a single inquiry about my well-being after leaving me stranded for hours. The silence spoke volumes about her concern for my safety. That night, sleeping in Paul's guest room, I made a decision. The time had come to establish clear boundaries with my daughter. No more enabling, no more excuses, no more financial support without accountability. For the first time in years, I slept deeply, unburdened by the weight of maintaining a relationship built on illusions. After 2 days recovering at Paul's home, I returned to my own house, mentally prepared to address the situation with Amanda. What I discovered upon arrival shattered any remaining illusions about my daughter's character. My normally meticulously organized home office showed subtle signs of disturbance. The file cabinet drawer containing property documents was slightly ajar. My computer had been accessed, the login screen showing a recent timestamp during my absence. A chill ran through me as I began systematically checking important documents. The deed to the penthouse was missing from its folder. So were several other property titles and financial statements. My neighbor Ted waved me over when I stepped outside to check the mail. "Glad you're back, Emmanuel. Your daughter stopped by yesterday with some fellow in a suit. Said you'd sent them to pick up important papers. Did you let them in?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "No need. She has her own key, doesn't she?" They were here about 20 minutes. The guy looked like a lawyer type. 3-piece suit, leather briefcase. I thanked Ted and returned inside, the implications of this information settling like lead in my stomach. Amanda had brought a lawyer to retrieve documents while I was gone. This was no longer merely a family dispute, but a calculated legal maneuver. I called Paul immediately, explaining the situation. As both a friend and an attorney specializing in property law, his advice was invaluable. "Don't confront her yet," he cautioned. "We need to understand exactly what she's done before making any moves. I'll send over my associate Jennifer. She specializes in fraud cases." Jennifer arrived within hours, a sharp-eyed woman with 30 years of legal experience evident in her no-nonsense approach. We began a methodical investigation, starting with my financial accounts and working outward. What we uncovered exceeded my worst fears. Amanda had not only forged my signature on documents for the penthouse loan, but had systematically created false paperwork for several other properties I owned, including rental units and land investments. "These are sophisticated forgeries," Jennifer noted grimly. "Professional quality. She didn't do this alone." Further investigation revealed Amanda had established a shell company named Winters Legacy Holdings that mimicked my legitimate business entities. Using this company, she had initiated the transfer of assets from my name to hers, creating a paper trail that suggested I was voluntarily divesting properties as part of estate planning. "The paperwork makes it appear you're gifting these properties to her as part of end-of-life arrangements," Jennifer explained. "Anyone reviewing casually would assume it's a father transferring wealth to his only heir." The betrayal cut deeper with each revelation. We discovered Amanda had been planning this for at least 2 years, gradually laying groundwork for a massive property theft disguised as legitimate transfers. The most disturbing discovery came when Jennifer recovered deleted emails from my computer's backup system. Amanda had been corresponding with someone named Daniel Hamilton, apparently her romantic partner, about their plans for securing the old man's assets. "Once everything's transferred, we'll have the capital for the Belize project," she had written. "Dad's clueless. He thinks I'm still his little girl. By the time he figures anything out, it'll be too late to unravel it all." Daniel's response chilled me to the bone. "Just make sure there's no way to trace it back to manipulation or coercion. We need clean transfers that look like his idea. Old people get confused all the time. If he causes problems later, we can always push for a competency hearing." They had been plotting to steal my assets and potentially have me declared mentally incompetent if I objected. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when Jennifer interviewed my former executive assistant, Diane, who had retired the previous year after 20 years working alongside me. Diane reluctantly admitted Amanda had approached her months before her retirement. She said, "You wanted to simplify your holdings but were too proud to ask for help." She offered me $10,000 to provide signature samples and documentation access. "I trusted her, Emmanuel. She's your daughter. I never imagined." Diane's voice broke, genuine remorse in her eyes. "I enabled her to steal your signature patterns. I'm so sorry. I'll testify if needed." As these discoveries mounted, my phone began ringing incessantly. Amanda, finally realizing I had returned and was likely discovering her scheme. 38 missed calls in one day. Voicemails ranging from casual "just checking in" Dad to increasingly desperate. "We need to talk immediately." I listened to each message, noting the progression from faked concern to thinly veiled threats. "Dad, you're making a big mistake by involving lawyers. This was all being done with your best interests in mind. Call me immediately." "Emmanuel, this is Daniel Hamilton, Amanda's fiancé. I'm an attorney specializing in elder care. We're concerned about your recent behavior and decision-making. Please contact us to discuss your care options. Dad, if you don't call back within the hour, we'll be forced to take steps to ensure your well-being. This isn't a threat, just concern about your mental state." Each message confirmed what the evidence had already told me. My daughter was not merely financially manipulative. She was actively dangerous to my autonomy and security. The painful truth settled like concrete in my chest. Amanda saw me not as a father to love, but as an obstacle to remove and an asset to acquire. At Jennifer's advice, I did not return any calls. Instead, we continued building a comprehensive picture of Amanda's actions, preparing for the inevitable confrontation with methodical care. "She's getting desperate," Jennifer observed as my phone rang for the 39th time that day. "That works in our favor. Desperate people make mistakes." That night, alone in my home with new security measures installed, I mourned not just the daughter I thought I had, but the relationship I now realized had never truly existed. The grief was profound, yet alongside it grew a steely resolve. Amanda had underestimated me significantly. She was about to learn that this old man was far from helpless. The morning after discovering the full extent of Amanda's betrayal, I convened a meeting in my home office with a team of professionals Paul had assembled. Besides Jennifer, the fraud specialist, we were joined by Michael Reeves, a forensic accountant, and Sophia Diaz, a private investigator with experience in financial crimes. "We need to approach this methodically," Paul began, his legal pad already filled with notes. "Amanda has clearly spent years planning this. Our response needs to be equally thorough." For 4 hours, we dissected every aspect of Amanda's scheme, identifying vulnerabilities and establishing priorities. The penthouse emerged as our first concern, given the fraudulent loan against it and its significant value. "She's living in a property she's actively trying to steal from you," Jennifer pointed out. "That needs to end immediately." Michael's financial analysis revealed Amanda had already misappropriated nearly $800,000 through various means, including fraudulent transfers from accounts where she had fiduciary access. "She's burning through cash at an alarming rate," he noted, displaying spreadsheets tracking her spending. Luxury purchases, first-class travel, significant transfers to offshore accounts. Classic pre-flight capital movement. Sophia's investigation uncovered troubling background on Daniel Hamilton, Amanda's accomplice and apparent fiancé. 3 previous fraud investigations, though no convictions. 2 prior relationships with wealthy older women who subsequently lost significant assets in failed investments. He specializes in looking legitimate while operating just within legal gray areas. With all this information, we formulated a 3-phase plan. Phase 1 would focus on asset protection, immediately securing everything Amanda hadn't yet managed to access. New accounts were established, passwords changed, security protocols enhanced. Phase 2 would reclaim compromised assets, beginning with the penthouse. "Changing the locks is just the start," Paul explained. "We'll file emergency injunctions preventing any property transfers or financial transactions involving your assets." Phase 3 would address the legal consequences for Amanda's actions. "This is where you'll face difficult choices," Jennifer said gently. "The evidence supports criminal charges for fraud, identity theft, and financial elder abuse." The term elder abuse struck me with particular force. Despite my age, I had never considered myself elderly or vulnerable. Yet Amanda had weaponized my age, using it as a tool to potentially declare me incompetent. "I need time to consider the criminal aspect," I said. "For now, let's focus on protecting and reclaiming what's mine." Implementation began immediately. By noon, I had signed the necessary paperwork to freeze accounts, revoke powers of attorney, and file for emergency injunctions. At 2 o'clock, I made the call that would irrevocably change my relationship with Amanda. I contacted Stanley Broderick, the most reputable locksmith in Manhattan, and authorized him to change every lock at the penthouse, effective immediately. "We have a court order authorizing this action," Jennifer informed Stanley, sending the hastily obtained document electronically. "The property owner is reclaiming his property from an unauthorized occupant who is engaged in fraud." While the locks were being changed, Paul's team served Amanda with legal notices at her office, informing her that her access to the penthouse had been revoked and any attempt to enter would constitute trespassing. I insisted on receiving real-time updates throughout the process, steeling myself for Amanda's inevitable reaction. It came swifter and more violently than anticipated. At 4:17, my phone erupted with her call. Against the team's advice, I answered, placing it on speaker so they could witness the exchange. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Amanda's voice vibrated with rage. "There are locksmiths at my home changing my locks. That property is legally mine," I replied calmly. "As the deed holder, I've chosen to reclaim it. This is insane. My things are in there. You can't just lock me out of my own home. Your things will be packed and stored at a secure facility. You'll be provided access to retrieve them with proper supervision." Her voice shifted, becoming sickeningly sweet, a tactic I recognized from childhood when she wanted to manipulate me. "Daddy, there's clearly been a misunderstanding. Why don't we meet and talk about this like adults? I'm worried about you. You haven't been yourself lately." "I've never been more myself," I replied steadily. "The misunderstanding was mine, believing you capable of basic decency and honesty. Is someone putting you up to this?" The sweetness vanished. "Is it that fossil Paul? He's always been jealous of our relationship. This is my decision, based on discovering your systematic fraud and theft." Her laugh was brittle, threatening. "Fraud? Theft? Be careful making accusations you can't support, Dad. I have influential friends. I can make things very difficult for you. Every accusation is thoroughly documented. Your emails with Daniel were particularly illuminating. The competency hearing was an especially nice touch." Silence fell. I had clearly surprised her with the depth of my knowledge. "You're making a terrible mistake," she said finally, her voice low and dangerous. "I was trying to help you streamline your affairs. If you pursue this vindictive path, I'll have no choice but to take legal action protecting both of us. You'll find I've already taken comprehensive legal action. Your access to my accounts has been terminated. The properties you attempted to transfer have been secured with new filings. The fraudulent loans are being addressed with the relevant financial institutions." Another lengthy silence followed. When Amanda spoke again, her voice had changed, becoming the cold, calculating tone I now recognized as her true self. "You have no idea what you're starting. I will fight you with every resource at my disposal. When I'm done, you'll be in a state-run nursing home with nothing to your name." "Goodbye, Amanda," I said, ending the call as she continued her tirade. The room remained silent for several moments after the call ended. Jennifer was the first to speak. "That was textbook narcissistic rage. You handled it perfectly, Emmanuel. Calm, factual, no emotional engagement." Despite her praise, I felt hollow inside. The daughter I had raised, the child I had loved unconditionally for nearly 4 decades, had just threatened to destroy me without a hint of remorse or hesitation. "Are you all right?" Paul asked quietly, his hand on my shoulder. "No," I answered honestly, "but I will be." Within hours, reports came in of Amanda creating a scene at the penthouse building, demanding entry and threatening the staff. Security had escorted her from the premises, further documentation of her increasingly erratic behavior. That evening, as we finalized the remaining protective measures, I made a decision about Phase 3 of our plan. "I won't pursue criminal charges immediately," I told the team. "First, I want to meet with her face to face, with all of you present. She needs to understand exactly what I know and what options remain available to her." "That's risky," Sophia cautioned. "She's unpredictable right now. Nevertheless, it's necessary," I insisted. She's still my daughter, however difficult that is to reconcile with her actions. Before taking steps that cannot be undone, I need to look her in the eye one last time. The team reluctantly agreed to arrange a meeting at Paul's law office with appropriate security measures in place. The confrontation was scheduled for 11 the following morning. That night, alone in my home with new locks and a security system, I found myself looking through old photographs of Amanda. Her kindergarten graduation with a missing front tooth, her high school prom in a blue dress that matched her eyes, her college graduation, my arm proudly around her shoulders. When had the child in these photos transformed into someone capable of such calculated cruelty? Had I contributed to this outcome through excessive indulgence? By trying to give her everything? Had I inadvertently created someone who believed she deserved everything, including what rightfully belonged to others? Sleep eluded me as I grappled with these questions, preparing myself for what would surely be the most difficult confrontation of my life. The morning of the meeting dawned clear and cold, the November sunlight harsh against the city skyline. I arrived at Paul's office 30 minutes early, reviewing our documentation one final time and centering myself for the confrontation ahead. Remember, stay calm, regardless of what she says or does, Jennifer advised. Her goal will be to provoke an emotional response that makes you appear unstable or irrational. At precisely 11, the receptionist announced Amanda's arrival. She was not alone. Daniel Hamilton accompanied her, along with an older attorney I recognized as Walter Prentice, known for handling high-profile divorces and contentious estate disputes. Amanda entered the conference room with practiced confidence, designer heels clicking against hardwood floors, her expression a careful mask of concerned daughterly love. "Dad," she began immediately, moving as if to embrace me. I remained seated, maintaining professional distance. Her step faltered, the first crack in her performance. "Thank you for coming, Amanda," I said formally. "Please introduce your companions." Her smile tightened. "This is Daniel Hamilton, my fiancé, and Walter Prentice, who's here to help us resolve this unfortunate misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding exists," I replied evenly. "Please be seated so we can proceed efficiently." Once everyone was seated, Paul initiated the meeting by distributing folders containing key evidence documents. "We've prepared summaries of the fraudulent activities perpetrated against Mr. Winters. This meeting is being recorded with consent of all parties present." Walter Prentice frowned as he scanned the first page. "These are serious allegations. My client categorically denies any wrongdoing." "Your client's denials are irrelevant in the face of documented evidence," Jennifer responded, highlighting specific sections. Page 3 details the forged signatures on loan documents. Page 5 contains email exchanges explicitly discussing the planned theft of assets. Amanda maintained her composure, though her knuckles whitened where she gripped her armrest. Daniel looked increasingly uncomfortable, his eyes darting between the documents and the door. For nearly 20 minutes, my legal team methodically presented evidence of every fraudulent action, financial manipulation, and planned exploitation. The temperature in the room seemed to drop with each new revelation. Finally, I spoke directly to Amanda. "I've known about your abandonment of me on the mountain road for days. What you don't realize is that experience gave me clarity. It showed me who you truly are when you believe there are no consequences." "Dad, you're blowing a simple argument out of proportion," Amanda attempted to interject. "I came back for you. You were already gone." "Don't lie to me. Not anymore," I said, my voice steady but firm. "The highway patrol has the traffic camera footage. You never returned." Her expression hardened, the pretense of loving daughter finally dropping away. "Fine. I left you there. You were being impossible, controlling as always. I needed time to cool off, in a thunderstorm, miles from any shelter, without a phone or wallet. You're a grown man. I knew you'd figure it out." The callousness of her response silenced the room. Even her attorney looked taken aback. "Mr. Prentice," I addressed her lawyer directly, "are you aware your client has been planning to have me declared mentally incompetent as part of this scheme?" The emails on page 12 detail that strategy quite explicitly. Walter Prentice reviewed the indicated pages, his expression growing troubled. He leaned over to whisper something to Amanda, who dismissed him with an irritated gesture. "Let's cut through this melodrama," Amanda said sharply. "What do you want? Money? An apology? What will it take to end this ridiculous situation?" "I want 3 things," I replied, having considered this question deeply. "First, your complete withdrawal from any claim on my properties or finances. Second, repayment of all funds fraudulently obtained or transferred. Third, your written acknowledgement of your actions, which will be held by my attorney and used only if you attempt to resume these activities." "That's absurd. I've done nothing wrong legally. This is a family disagreement you're criminalizing because I dared to make financial decisions without your blessing." Daniel, looking increasingly uncomfortable, finally spoke. "Amanda, perhaps we should consider the settlement offer. The evidence they've assembled is concerning." She turned on him with surprising venom. "Shut up, Daniel. You're not helping." "Actually, Miss Winters," Jennifer interjected, "Mr. Hamilton might be the only person in the room helping you right now. The evidence supports multiple felony charges. Your father is offering a path that keeps you out of prison." The word prison hung in the air like smoke. Amanda's carefully constructed facade finally crumbled completely. "This is how you treat your only child?" she demanded, eyes flashing with genuine anger. "After everything I've done for you? Who visited when Mom died? Who checked on you? Who managed your social calendar and made sure you weren't completely alone?" "You did those things," I acknowledged, "while simultaneously planning to strip me of my assets and autonomy. Your occasional visits don't justify theft and fraud. I deserved that money. I put up with your controlling behavior for years. Everything with strings attached. Everything with your approval required. I'm 38 years old, and still having to justify my decisions to Daddy." In that moment, I saw something I had missed for decades. Amanda genuinely believed she was entitled to whatever she wanted, regardless of ethics or law. In her mind, her desires superseded all other considerations, including basic human decency toward her own father. "You have 24 hours to accept my terms," I said, rising to indicate the meeting was concluded. "After that, we proceed with criminal charges." "You wouldn't dare," she challenged, though uncertainty flickered in her eyes. "You abandoned me on a mountain road in a thunderstorm, Amanda. Then you went home to sleep in a penthouse you were actively stealing from me. Don't presume to know what I would or wouldn't dare." As they gathered their materials to leave, Amanda made one final attempt. "You'll die alone, you know. Is that what you want? To drive away the only family you have left?" The question was designed to wound, to leverage my greatest fear against me. 6 months earlier, it might have worked. Now, I saw it for the manipulation it was. I would rather die alone with my dignity than surrounded by people who value me only for what they can take. After they departed, my legal team expressed cautious optimism about the outcome. "She's cornered and she knows it," Paul observed. "The question is whether she's rational enough to accept the lifeline you've offered." The following day, Walter Prentice contacted Jennifer to accept the settlement terms. Amanda would sign all necessary documents, relinquishing claims to my properties, repay the accessible funds, and provide the written acknowledgement of her actions. What followed were months of recovery, both financial and emotional. The penthouse was sold, the proceeds securing my retirement more thoroughly than before. New legal protections were established to prevent any similar attempts in the future. More importantly, I began the process of healing from the profound betrayal by my only child. At Paul's suggestion, I joined a support group for parents estranged from adult children. There I found others who understood the unique pain of such estrangement, especially when caused by the child's harmful actions rather than mutual conflict. Frank and Dorothy Reynolds became unexpected friends, their straightforward wisdom and genuine kindness a balm to my wounded spirit. We spoke weekly, and I visited their mountain home when I felt strong enough to travel that route again. I also discovered purpose in volunteer work with the Elder Financial Protection Network, using my experience to help other seniors recognize and avoid exploitation, particularly from family members. Turning my pain into protection for others gave meaning to an experience that might otherwise have remained simply traumatic. 6 months after our confrontation, Amanda requested a meeting through her therapist. According to the therapist, she had begun addressing the underlying issues that drove her behavior, including unresolved grief over her mother's death and distorted entitlement beliefs. I agreed to meet in the therapist's office, with clear boundaries and expectations established beforehand. Our conversation was stilted, painful, but held small seeds of possibility. Not for an immediate restoration of trust, which would require years of consistent behavioral change, but for a potential future relationship built on honest acknowledgement of the past. "I don't expect forgiveness," Amanda said toward the end of our session, "but I am sorry, truly, for what I did to you on that road. It was cruel and inexcusable. It was a small step, acknowledging just one of many wrongs, but it was something real amid years of manipulation." Today, 3 years later, Amanda and I maintain limited contact. Trust rebuilds slowly, if at all, after such profound betrayal. Our relationship will never again be what I once imagined, but perhaps it can eventually become something authentic, however limited. The most valuable lesson from this painful journey was understanding that love without boundaries isn't love at all, but enablement. True love requires both compassion and accountability. Sometimes the most loving action is establishing firm consequences for harmful behavior, even when that behavior comes from someone deeply loved. I also learned that family is not merely defined by blood. Frank, Dorothy, and Paul showed more genuine care during my crisis than my own daughter had in years. Family can be chosen, built through authentic connection, rather than mere biological obligation. For those watching who might recognize elements of your own story and mine, I encourage you to trust your instincts when something feels wrong in a relationship, even with those closest to you. Love does not require accepting mistreatment or exploitation. Establishing healthy boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for genuine relationships. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with loved ones? What helped you maintain those boundaries despite emotional pressure? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else facing similar challenges. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to hear more reflections from a life long lived. Hit the like button to help others find this content, and share with anyone who might need to hear that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. Thank you for listening to this chapter of my journey. Remember, our worth isn't determined by how others treat us, but by how we choose to treat ourselves and others, even in the face of betrayal. Until next time, this is Emmanuel Winters, wishing you the courage to establish boundaries and the wisdom to recognize true love when you find it.